The number one thing that preppers stockpile is food. I mean, by far it's food. And there's a reason for that. Oh boy, there's a reason for that. This video is going to show you, stay through this, that we're in for a world of hurt when it comes to our food supply. And I'm going to go through a bunch of articles and other stuff too. Stay with us. World headed for food wars, major commodities trader. And this sums up this video. We have fought many wars over oil. Oh, for sure. We'll fight bigger wars over food and water. That's what's coming. Oil has been a huge thing for wars. I mean, look at most of the wars over the last 100 years were either won, lost, or decided on, or even started because of oil. Food is this new oil, and we're going to see a lot of wars just because of food. In fact, it's already started. From the Financial Times, Russian fertilizer is the new gas for Europe, top producer warns. And let's not discount what we've seen over the past few years. Nothing to see here. There's nothing. Recent fires at food processing facilities have some claiming, well, there's more here than what meets the eye. Experts aren't convinced. And another one, the meat factory is on fire. Again, while researching the issue's theme, fire, Slice discovered more than 30 fires that have broken out in meat factories and processing plants, most of which have occupied in the past few years in the United States, but also Canada, UK, etc. I want to point out this is 2021. And I'm the first person, by the way, who will always step back, look at the numbers, look at the stats, and the amount of fires and explosions and weird things that has taken place at the meat processing plants and food industry. It's way above and beyond what you would normally expect to see in that type of industry. There's something more here than simply just a few fires. And ironically, from The Economist, how lab-grown meat became part of America's culture wars. Conservatives have beef with Petri dish steaks. And along exactly those same lines, by the way, Denmark is now introducing the world's first livestock carbon tax. So food industry plants catching on fire exploding, and lab-grown meats now being part of the culture war. And now we see taxes on cows. Yeah, apparently they produce way too many greenhouse gases, so they got to go. And of course, the same thing. This is 3 years old, by the way. If we want to save the planet, the future of food is insects. And you don't like insects, that's okay. The push for plant-based foods continues as operators escalate goals. The key here, goals. That's what we're talking about. Because it's not simply as a free market society basically typically does. If somebody wants some beef, then guess what? They'll produce more cows because the price of beef goes up. Oh no. What we see is an absolute agenda-controlled situation where they're trying to limit the amount of food, not just beef, not just animals, but to limit the amount of food because it's all about control. It's always been about control. And that's why we see also from 3 years ago, because it's still happening now, Bill Gates is the biggest private owner of farmland in the United States. Why? Oh, why is the question. And 3 years ago, Gates owns approximately 242,000 acres. He actually owns a lot more now, with assets totaling more than $690 million. To put it in perspective, that's nearly twice the size of Hong Kong. In the United States, well, first world countries are defined by the excesses of its ruling class. But why do only a handful of people own so much land? Land is power, land is wealth. It's about land. I mean, honestly, going back hundreds of years, it's always been about land. But that's not what's going on today. It's about what the land can provide. And that provision, what it can provide, is food. It's the huge new war that's heading in our direction. And there's a documentary about this too, by the way. If you haven't had a chance to see this, make sure you check it out. It's called The Grab. An investigative journalist uncovers the money, influence, and alarming rationale behind covert efforts to control the most vital resource on the planet, food. And it's escalating food wars around the world. All major countries are involved in this. It's how countries are grabbing agriculture. For example, China bought Smithfield Foods, and now China owns 1 in 4 of all pigs in the United States. Saudi Arabia constructing massive farms in the U.S. and exporting it. Russia is starting a massive cattle industry. And finally, the scary part, how the founder of Blackwater, Eric Prince, if you don't know Blackwater, what he did was basically set up mercenaries in the United States, and the Pentagon, Department of Defense, and even the CIA hired his company to carry out covert operations. That way they can actually skirt across using the military for this. His new company is heading up security as Africa is being taken over and turned into new farmland. As the USDA ironically forecasts the sharpest decline in U.S. farm income in history. Look at this. We're talking about decades and decades into our modern times. Boom, down it goes. So what do? Of course, we grow our own gardens. We grow our own food. I mean, stockpile too. Surely, we'll talk about that in a minute. But growing our own food, we're good there, right? The government wants a people's garden community. Oh, not simply just for people here trying to garden together. Oh, no. They want you to register your garden, and it'll be posted on the map of the USDA's website. And, oh yeah, you get a nice sign for you to display in the garden. So when it comes to prepping, when it comes to stockpile, when it comes to the things that we really really, truly need to pay attention to. This is it. Food wars. I'm always about prepping gear, stockpiling the right things, but food really is it. It is the new oil of the planet that countries are grabbing quickly. And it's no wonder we see, as our countries grabbing food from each other, that in the United States, we see people like Bill Gates buying so much farmland. We see food industry plants being burned. We see even our farmlands being sold to China, Saudi Arabia, our cattle into Russia. And as we see our food industry collapse in the United States, that is, ready for this? This is the moral of the story. When a food industry collapses, that is the number one thing that causes rioting and protest, and finally revolution. Stockpile lots of food. Do everything you can to obtain as much food as possible. But the violence that's going to come because of this, you also need to be able to protect and prepare in ways that basically you want to make sure your family's going to be safe. Very scary times, everybody. Put in the comments below, what do you think about this? And as always, keep prepping, and we'll see you next time.